Lionel Richie is one of the most iconic artists of our time. His career spans decades, and his songs have touched millions of hearts across the world. From Hello to All Night Long, his music is unforgettable. He's not just a performer, he's a legend. But despite all the love and admiration from his fans, there's something Lionel Richie has never experienced: seeing his concerts from the fans' perspective. He's always on stage, giving his all to the audience, but what if he could experience the magic of the concert from the other side? What if he could see how his music affects people, not just through his own eyes but through theirs? That was the idea that started it all. In a surprising move, Lionel Richie decided to go undercover during one of his own concerts. No one, not even the people closest to him, would know that he was there, blending in with the crowd. What he would discover would leave him in tears. Lionel Richie knew this would be no ordinary experience. For years he had performed on stages all around the world. The lights, the crowd, the applause, it was all part of his life. But what was it like for the people who came to see him perform? How did they feel, what did they think, and how did his music impact them? He had always wondered, so he came up with an unexpected plan. He decided to go undercover during his own concert. The idea was simple: change his appearance enough that no one would recognize him, and experience the concert from the fans' point of view. He wanted to walk among the crowd, listen to their reactions, and hear their stories. Preparing for the plan, Lionel Richie had to think about everything. He couldn't just walk into the venue wearing his usual look. He needed a disguise, something that would allow him to blend in and become just another face in the crowd. He chose a more casual outfit, something that would help him go unnoticed. He even wore a hat and sunglasses, carefully making sure no one could catch a glimpse of who he truly was. As the day of the concert approached, Lionel Richie felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was thrilling to think that he was about to experience something completely new, but at the same time, he knew it wouldn't be easy. He would be surrounded by fans who loved him, but they had no idea that the person standing next to them was the very artist they were waiting to see. The plan was set, and Lionel Richie was ready to see his music and his fans in a way he never had before. As Lionel Richie walked toward the concert venue, he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. This wasn't like any other night before a show. Usually he would be backstage, preparing to go on stage, but tonight was different. He was about to experience everything from the other side. When he reached the entrance, he could already hear the buzz of excitement in the air. Fans were lined up, chatting, laughing, and eagerly waiting for the concert to begin. It was a feeling he knew all too well, but now he was on the other side, looking at everything with fresh eyes. Lionel Richie slipped past the crowd, unnoticed, and entered the venue. The lights, the sounds, and the energy in the room felt different from his usual perspective. The atmosphere was electric, but this time it wasn't because of the spotlight on him. It was because of the excitement in the air, excitement that had nothing to do with him yet, everything to do with the music he had created. As he moved through the crowd, Lionel Richie felt a mix of awe and curiosity. He was surrounded by people who loved his music, but they had no idea he was right there with them. He could hear their conversations, their laughs, and their stories, and for the first time, he realized just how much his music meant to them. He overheard fans talking about their favorite songs, the ones that had gotten them through tough times. Some were there with their families, others with their friends, but all of them shared a common bond: the music of Lionel Richie. It was a surreal moment for him, standing there just another face in the crowd, yet knowing how deeply connected he was to everyone in that room. Lionel Richie faceting with that smile, this was what he had hoped for. A chance to experience the concert as his fans did, to feel the magic of the night through their eyes. Little did he know, what he would discover next would change everything. As the night went on, Lionel Richie began to see the concert from a completely new perspective. The fans weren't just there to hear his songs, they were there for something far deeper. Music, he realized, was more than entertainment. It was an emotional connection, a thread that tied people together in ways he had never fully understood. He found himself standing near a group of people who were singing along to one of his most famous hits, Hello. Their voices echoed through the venue, blending together in perfect harmony. But it wasn't just the sound of the song that moved Lionel, it was the emotion in their faces. Their eyes were closed, lost in the music, as if every word he had written spoke directly to them. As Lionel Richie overheard one woman talking about how Hello had helped her get through a difficult breakup. "That song," she said. Her voice trembling, "it was the one thing that got me through the hardest days. Every time I heard it, I felt like Lion was speaking to me. It was like he understood exactly what I was going through." Hearing that, Lionel Richie felt a lump form in his throat. He had always known that his music could touch people, but this was different. This was raw, this was personal. And it was happening right in front of him. He moved further into the crowd, trying to process everything. In another corner of the venue, he overheard a young man telling his friends how All Night Long had been the soundtrack to his childhood. "My dad and I used to play this song every Saturday morning while we cleaned the house," he said with a smile. "It was our thing. Every time I hear it, I think of him." For a moment Lionel Richie stood frozen, taking it all in, the memories that his songs had created for people, the way they had shaped their lives. It was overwhelming. He had never truly understood how his music had become so woven into the fabric of his fans' lives until now. There was a group of friends near him, all of them laughing and reminiscing about their favorite concert memories. One of them mentioned how they had first seen Lionel in concert years ago, and how it was one of the best nights of their life. "It was like a dream," the fan said. "The music, the energy. Lionel, he just makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself." Lionel Richie stood at King N, but be moved by the stories. He had always thought of himself as just a performer, someone who entertained, but hearing how his music had become a part of people's lives, how it had helped them through their hardest moments, made him realize something he had never fully grasped before: the true power of music. He had written these songs not just for himself, but for everyone. And in that moment, Lionel Richie understood exactly why music mattered. It wasn't just about creating hits or winning awards. It was about the connection it created between him and his fans. It was about the shared experiences, the emotions, and the memories. And he was just beginning to understand how deeply those things ran. As Lionel Richie stood and continued to move through the crowd, he began to overhear conversations that were far more personal, stories that struck a deep chord in his heart. These weren't just fans enjoying a night of music, these were people who had been profoundly touched by his songs, who had found comfort, strength, and hope in the very melodies and lyrics he had written. One story stood out to him. A man in his late 30s was talking to his friends about how endless love had been the soundtrack to his relationship with his late wife. "She passed away last year," he said quietly, his voice full of emotion, "but whenever I hear this song, I feel like she's still with me. It was our song, and now it's the song that helps me remember her, even when everything else feels empty." Hearing that, Lionel Richie still let a wave of emotion wash over him. He had written that song so long ago, but he had never truly understood the depth of its meaning to the people who listened to it. It wasn't just a love song, it was a connection to memories, to lost loved ones, to times of happiness that could never be relived. And here, in this crowd, the song had become a lifeline for someone in pain. As he made his way through the venue, he heard other similar stories. A woman spoke about how Say You Say Me had helped her get through a long battle with depression. "Every time I was at my lowest point, I'd put on that song," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was like a reminder that things could get better, that I wasn't alone." Lionel Richie Stilliga Wushi stood amid bits of making, set to Mose. He had always known that music had power, but this was something different. These were not just fans enjoying the sound. These were people who had turned to his music for comfort during their darkest days, finding solace in his words and melodies. He had never fully realized how much his songs had meant to people in their most vulnerable moments. It made him reflect on his own life. He had always been focused on the music, the performances, and the accolades. But here, in this crowd, he saw something much more significant. His music wasn't just a part of entertainment. It was a thread woven into the fabric of people's lives, a source of healing, of strength, and of hope. There were so many struggles that Lionel Richie Stilliga Wushi stood a continues enu point. Personal battles, family losses, heartbreaks, all these things happening in the lives of the fans around him. But through it all, his music had been there, offering some kind of peace, even if only for a moment. In that moment, Lionel Richie stood that his role was far more important than he had ever realized. He wasn't just a performer on stage, he was part of something much bigger, something that touched lives in ways he could never have imagined, and it was this realization that would stay with him long after the concert ended. As the night progressed, Lionel Richie stood swell, everywhere he turned, there was another story, another connection that deepened his understanding of the power his music had on the people around him. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had heard, what he had witnessed. The weight of it all began to sink in, and for the first time, Lionel Richie he found a quiet spot near the back of the venue, standing by a set of seats where no one could easily notice him. His mind was racing, the stories, the shared experiences, the emotions, everything was hitting him all at once. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the crowd and the music wash over him. The feeling was almost too much to bear. Then, something unexpected happened. Lionel Richie was notes of one of his most beloved songs, Hello. The familiar melody echoed through the speakers, and the entire crowd seemed to come alive. But this time, it wasn't just about the song, it was about everything that had led up to this moment. He watched as the fans around him sang along with the song, some of them smiling, some with tears in their eyes. They weren't just listening to the music, they were living it. The song had become a part of their lives, woven into their memories. For some it was a reminder of a past love, for others it was a symbol of strength in the face of adversity. At that moment, Lionel Richie know that music had power, but this was different. This wasn't just about the connection between the artist and the audience. It was about how his music had become a part of their journey, a part of their personal histories. He felt tears welling up in his eyes. He couldn't help it. The realization of what his music had meant to so many people, how it had been a source of comfort and connection in their darkest times, was overwhelming. For the first time, Lionel Richie stood the true depth of his impact. It wasn't just about the applause, the awards, or the fame. It was about the lives he had touched, the hearts he had healed, and the memories he had helped create. Standing there, surrounded by fans who had no idea who he was, Lionel Richie was moved in a way he had never been before. This was the moment he had been searching for. This was the discovery that would stay with him forever. As the final notes of Hello faded out and the crowd erupted into cheers, Lionel Richie knew it was time. His undercover adventure had given him an experience he would never forget. He had seen firsthand how deeply his music had impacted his fans, how it had woven itself into their lives, and how it had given them comfort when they needed it the most. With a mixture of emotions still swirling inside him, Lionel Richie made his way backstage. He knew what he had to do. It was time to reveal himself to the crowd. They had no idea who he was, but that was about to change. The excitement he felt was unlike anything he had experienced before. When Lionel Richie stepped onto the stage, the audience gasped. It took a moment for them to realize who he was. The recognition was instant. The cheers were deafening, but Lionel Richie overwhelmed him. He smiled, his eyes filled with tears, and looked out at the faces in the crowd. He had witnessed their love for his music, their pain, their joy, and the deep connection they felt with him. Now he was ready to share that same connection with them. "Thank you," he said, his voice full of emotion. "Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your lives, your stories, and your hearts. I never knew how much my music meant to you until tonight, and I will never forget this moment." The crowd continued to cheer, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just for the star on stage, it was for the man who had learned something incredibly important about the power of music, and how it could change lives in ways he could never have imagined. As Lionel Richie ready to perform the rest of the show, he felt a sense of peace. He knew now that his music wasn't just something he created, it was a bridge between him and his fans, a bridge that would last forever.